welcome to the Two Beans in a Pod.
We have an absolutely massive breaking story today.
We really do. I mean, we just have to get straight into it because the news cycle has completely exploded this morning. The recently released Epstein files have shocked the world again.
Sent absolute shockwaves everywhere.
Right. But this time, those shockwaves are hitting the United Kingdom directly. We are talking about the arrest of former Prince Andrew.
Or, as he is officially known now in the police blotter, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor.
Exactly. And what makes this so incredibly heavy is that this arrest is inextricably linked to the allegations in the book Nobody's Girl.
Which was published just last year.
Right, by Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent victims. For years, people dissected her every word, but with these released files, her claims have been completely vindicated. Virginia Giuffre has lost her credibility due to a negative media campaign, so we'll examine how much of that credibility can be regained. Please watch to the end.
It really is just a historic moment for you watching right now. Just to set the stage for you all, it is Thursday, February 19th, 2026.
Which is his 66th birthday.
Yeah. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been arrested on his 66th birthday. You honestly couldn't write a script like this if you tried.
You really couldn't. It feels like a season finale of reality. But before we unpack exactly how this happened, because the details of the raid are wild, and what was found in those files, I want to ask you to please hit the like button and subscribe to support the channel. It really helps us keep bringing you these breakdowns.
So let's look at what actually went down this morning, because the imagery here is just, it's stark. This wasn't a polite request from a local constable to come down to the station for a cup of tea.
No, not at all. This is a full-on raid.
Right. We're talking about 6 unmarked police cars.
Wow.
And plainclothes officers rolling up to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk.
That is the king's private estate. It's usually an absolute sanctuary.
Exactly. And simultaneously, police also searched the Royal Lodge in Berkshire.
So totally coordinated sweep.
Highly coordinated. And they took him into custody right there. Imagine that visual for a second. A man who was once second in line to the throne being led away in handcuffs on his birthday.
It is a crazy visual.
No.
But we really have to be precise about what he's actually being held for, because this is where the legal nuance gets fascinating and honestly a bit terrifying regarding national security.
Right. The specific suspicion is misconduct in public office, which might sound bureaucratic to some people, but it is a massive charge.
Yeah, because usually when you think of Andrew and Epstein, you think of these sexual allegations, you think of the parties.
Like plane rides, yeah.
Right. But this charge seems to be about his actual government job.
Exactly. This bridges that gap between his personal conduct and his official role. You have to remember, between 2001 and 2011, Andrew was the UK's special representative for international trade and investment.
So he was acting as a trade envoy.
He was. And the allegation here is that he didn't just party with Jeffrey Epstein. He sent confidential, highly sensitive government trade reports directly to him.
Wait, let me just stop you there because I want to make sure I understand the gravity of this. We aren't talking about him, like, emailing gossip about other royals.
No.
We are talking about state secrets.
Potentially, yes. Think about what a trade envoy actually does. They get advanced knowledge of economic policies,
Right.
Huge infrastructure contracts, currency fluctuations, and international deals before they ever go public.
And if you're a financier like Epstein,
that information is worth billions. It is insider trading on a geopolitical scale.
So he's allegedly feeding economic intel to a man running a massive blackmail operation. That changes the entire complexion of their relationship.
It really does.
It moves it from, a bad judgment friendship into an actual criminal conspiracy.
That is the exact implication. And in the UK, misconduct in public office is a common law offense. It doesn't just have a slap on the wrist sentence, it carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment.
Life imprisonment.
Wow. Yeah, it's reserved for when a public official willfully neglects their duty or abuses the public trust to such an extreme degree that it literally shatters confidence in the state.
And the reaction from the top, from his own brother, King Charles III, has been just ice cold.
Very cold.
I saw the statement released by the palace this morning. It expressed deepest concern, sure, but then it stated clearly, the law must take its course.
That phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The law must take its course.
Definitely.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of royal history, this is completely unprecedented in modern times. You literally have to go all the way back to 1647 to King Charles I to find a senior British royal arrested like this.
And we know how that ended. He was executed.
Right. So the symbolism here is massive. Consider the contrast to 1922. Prince Andreas of Greece, who was Prince Philip's father, faced execution in Greece during a revolution.
Okay.
And King George V, who was Andrew's great-grandfather, intervened to save him. He literally sent a Royal Navy ship, the HMS Calypso, to rescue him.
So they historically protect their own.
Always. But King Charles III is doing the exact opposite. He is stepping back and letting the police do their work. The protection is just gone.
It really feels like the shield is totally shattered. But we have to talk about the person who really made this happen. Because while Andrew was sitting in a holding cell, the woman who pointed the finger at him isn't here to see it.
No, she isn't.
Virginia Giuffre died by suicide on April 25th, 2025. She was only 41 years old.
It is the absolute tragedy at the heart of this victory. She spent half her life fighting to be heard. She died at her home in Nergaby, Western Australia.
And her memoir, Nobody's Girl, was published posthumously just last October.
And that book has become the roadmap for this entire investigation.
Her family released a statement today about the arrest that just broke my heart. They said, "He was never a prince. For survivors everywhere, Virginia did this for you."
It's incredibly powerful. She is speaking from beyond the grave through this book and these unsealed files. The book serves as the narrative backbone for everything we are seeing unfold today.
Right, because for a long time, the defense strategy was to paint her as inconsistent.
Call her a gold digger, say her memory was faulty.
Exactly. But the details in the book are just so vivid. She talks about being recruited while she was working as a locker room attendant at Mar-a-Lago.
Making $9 an hour? She was just a kid.
And then Ghislaine Maxwell comes in.
That power dynamic is essential for you to understand. Predatory grooming often disguises itself as mentorship. You have a teenager folding towels for minimum wage, and this sophisticated British socialite offers her the world.
The Cinderella moment. That is exactly what Virginia called it in the book.
March 2001 in London.
Yes. Maxwell wakes her up and literally tells her she's going to be like Cinderella and meet a handsome prince. It sounds like a fairy tale, but is a total horror story.
It's classic psychological manipulation. You create a fantasy scenario to lower the victim's defenses. And that night at the Tramp nightclub, and then the encounter at Maxwell's Belgravia home.
Where that famous photo was taken?
The one Andrew denied for years.
Yeah, I don't sweat defense.
Right. He famously claimed he couldn't sweat due to an adrenaline overdose in the Falklands War, so her description of him sweating on the dance floor had to be false.
I think that will go down in history as one of the worst alibis ever attempted.
Yeah.
But now with the release of these new Epstein files, we aren't just relying on her memory. We actually have receipts.
We do. And this is where the investigation really tightened the net. The files corroborate specific, bizarre details from her memoir that no one could just make up. This is a concept in investigative journalism called unique knowledge.
Break that down for us a bit more.
Unique knowledge refers to details about a crime that only someone who was actually in the room would know. If you accuse someone of a crime and describe the furniture perfectly, that's compelling.
Right.
But if you describe something truly weird, something no one would ever guess, and it turns out to be documented truth, that is undeniable proof.
So let's talk about the puppet then, because when I read this part in the book, I had to pause. Virginia described a highly sexualized encounter at Epstein's Manhattan mansion in April 2001.
Involving a spitting image puppet of Prince Andrew.
Yes. And for listeners who aren't British, Spitting Image was a satirical TV show that used these grotesque, exaggerated latex puppets of public figures.
They were incredibly ugly caricatures, and Virginia claimed they had one of Andrew at the New York mansion.
And for the longest time, people thought that sounded like a fever dream. Why would Epstein have a caricature puppet of the prince?
But then the unsealed deposition of Johannes Sjoberg came out.
Exactly. Johannes Sjoberg, another victim, testified under oath back in 2016. She didn't know what Virginia was writing in her private memoir. She hadn't read a draft.
And yet, Sjoberg confirmed it perfectly. She testified that they put the puppet on Virginia's lap, Andrew put his hand on Sjoberg's breast, and they put the puppet's hand on Virginia's breast for a photo.
It is entirely nauseating. But from an evidentiary standpoint, it is a smoking gun. Two different women, separate testimonies, years apart, describing the exact same bizarre prop.
It creates an unbreakable pattern of truthfulness. If Virginia was telling the truth about the puppet, a detail so specific it defies coincidence, why would she lie about the abuse? It completely dismantles the idea that she was a fantasist.
There's also the horrifying account of the orgy in the Virgin Islands. She alleged a third encounter involving Andrew and 8 other girls, mostly non-English speaking, on Little St. James.
And in the unsealed files, this is corroborated by a document labeled Exhibit 9.
Right.
It describes Jane Doe number 3, which we know is Giuffre based on the timeline, being forced into a group encounter with underage girls on the island. The paperwork matches the memoir perfectly.
It's a literal paper trail of trauma. And we really can't forget the logistics of it. Juan Alessi, the house manager, his testimony showed the machinery of how this worked.
It wasn't just chaotic parties, it was highly corporate. Alessi's testimony was damning for Maxwell. He confirmed that she would order drivers to pull over just so she can recruit girls right off the street.
Which backs up Virginia's account of how girls were picked up. And he mentioned the Mindspring email account.
Yes. They had a specific email address used solely to coordinate the movement of these young women.
It's systemic trafficking.
They were treating human beings like cargo, using spreadsheets and emails to manage a trafficking ring.
Systematic is the exact word.
Yeah.
But I want to pivot to the human toll this took. Because we talk about the victory of the arrest, but the cost was absolute. Virginia survived Epstein. She survived the intense media attacks, but she didn't survive the aftermath.
No, she didn't. And reading about her life in Australia in the book, you get this profound sense of a woman who was constantly looking over her shoulder. She tried to build a normal life in Gabi, but the fear never left.
The detail about the guns really stuck with me. She and her husband bought a Judge revolver and a 9mm from a store called Warrior Kit.
They weren't sport hunters. They were terrified.
She genuinely believed Epstein's reach could still get to her, even in remote Western Australia.
Paranoia is a very common long-term effect of trafficking. But we really have to ask, was it paranoia? She was fighting billionaires, intelligence assets, and royals. The threat felt entirely real to her.
She lived in a fortress of her own making. And we do have to address the end of her life, which the book covers in a really heartbreaking way. For a long time, the public narrative was that her husband, Robert, was her absolute rock.
She called him her one shot at a normal life.
But things deteriorated. And I want to handle this delicately, but just before her suicide, she released a statement to People magazine alleging domestic abuse.
It forces us to look at the harsh reality of complex trauma. Trauma is messy. She was a public hero, taking down giants, but at home, she was unable to escape the violence in her marriage.
At the time of her death, she had actually lost custody of her 3 children and was facing a restraining order. It's just layer upon layer of suffering.
It is a tragic reminder that public vindication doesn't always equal private peace. She won the war for the truth, but lost the battle for her own life.
But her legacy is still standing. She founded Soar, Speak Out, Act, Reclaim.
The blue butterfly symbol.
Exactly. That symbol is everywhere now. She might be gone, but she burned the house down on her way out.
She certainly did, and the fire is spreading to everyone involved. Look at Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife. She always stood by him, publicly condemning Epstein.
Playing the supportive partner.
But the emails released in these files tell a completely different story.
Oh, those emails were bad. I cringed reading them. She called Epstein a supreme friend.
A supreme friend. And remember the timeline here. This was after his first conviction.
Right.
This wasn't before they knew he was a predator. This was after he had officially registered as a sex offender. She had to shut down her companies recently just because of the public fallout from that.
It shows that the tolerance for this behavior was deeply embedded in their social circle. They prioritized money and access over basic morality.
They did.
And it's astounding that it took this long for the consequences to actually arrive. We are looking at decades of cover-ups. But now that we are here, Andrew is in custody, the files are out, Virginia is gone. What does this actually mean for the institution of the monarchy?
It means the untouchable nature of the monarchy has officially shattered. For centuries, the deal was you have the titles and the castles, and in exchange, you get protection from the consequences of common life.
But that deal is void now.
Completely void. King Charles III making that statement, the law must take its course, is the final nail in the coffin of royal immunity.
The system that protected powerful men is cracking under the weight of the truth Virginia left behind. It's a testament to the power of a single voice.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a final thought on all this, something that keeps nagging at me as I look at these specific trade envoy charges.
The state secrets aspect.
Exactly. We know about the sex trafficking. But if a senior royal was actively trading state secrets to a pedophile financier, what was he getting in return?
That is the big question.
Was it just money to fund a lavish lifestyle? Was it silence about his indiscretions? Or was the entire relationship a calculated transaction where the currency was human beings? We might be looking at a situation where the sex trafficking was actually the compromat used by Epstein to extract national security intelligence.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought for you to mull over. The idea that national security was being bartered in that house of horrors. And on that sobering note, we have to wrap it up. Thank you for listening to Two Beans in a Pod. Please order the book from the link below.